So he's definitely the one that stood out to me outside of Chucky in the most negative way possible.
Welcome in, everybody. It's the Starting 502 podcast with Roman Kelly and Jake Cook here. We're missing our boy Press, but we've got some things to cover and some things to break down. Jake, have you had a good Thanksgiving weekend and week?
It was up and down. Loved seeing the Cards play pretty well in the Bahamas. Kasean Pryor injury obviously took me down a notch, but then ultimately we beat the fucking shit out of the Kentucky Wildcats. So
We did.
My weekend was great.
We did, and I think overall the Louisville basketball team showed a lot in the Bahamas. So that was a positive overall in our performances, I feel like. And the Kasean Pryor news definitely put a big negative dampening feeling on some things. But we'll get into all of that. We're gonna break down what we saw in the battle for Atlantis from our Louisville Cardinals. And we're going to talk about what this Kasean Pryor injury means going forward, what having Corin Johnson out and some news and rumors we've potentially heard about that means going forward. And then, of course, another what was a starter in Abubakar Traore being out. And we've got a timeline on that and what that means going forward. And then, of course, it's Monday, December 2nd. We've got the Louisville Cardinals in action tomorrow night, December 3rd, against Ole Miss at the KFC Young Center. So we're going to break that down as well. I think Jake's got some bets that we might get into, or a couple plays for that from our boys over at Underdog that we're going to get into as well. Jake, talk to me though. How are you feeling? How are you? It's been a while since we've been able to talk. It's been a minute. We've got a lot of things we're going to discuss here. How are you feeling about the things that we're about to get into, and where is your head at about this Louisville basketball team right now?
Man, I feel good. I've loved what I saw that. And coming off that IU high, just like everyone on Twitter talking about Louisville. Louisville's back. I mean, just you couldn't say a word to me. I felt bulletproof in that moment. And then even the West Virginia game, winning without shooting well, and it being a physical game, and us out rebounding them, things that we didn't expect to see, felt really great. And the season isn't lost by no means, but God, that Kasean Pryor injury took me from a 9 out of 10. If we would have lost OU. Still feeling really good about the team, top 30 in the net, and now I'm at like a 5 or 6 out of 10 because I think he is a huge loss.
Yeah, it is a very big loss for us. But yeah, looking back in the Battle of Atlantis, we'll jump right into it. We put a beat down on IU. Pretty. How do you say this? Controlled the game the entire time. Never felt like IU was really giving a true fighting chance of competing once we got that lead. And I liked what I saw in that first outing against Indiana. It was almost a little bit more than I expected. I can't even say almost. It was definitely more than I expected. I knew the matchup had some ways in which Louisville could benefit, but I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to exploit it. And that's exactly what we did. Shout out to Chucky Hepburn.
Just a straight shit pumping in that second half. My biggest concern going into that game was just IU's size, and we were coming off of a game where we played lower competition and we were getting out rebounded. We were giving up a ton of offensive rebounds. So my hesitation coming into that one was the size, but God, it just didn't matter. In that second half, Chucky's forcing turnover after turnover. We're running, we're hitting threes, we're finishing at the rim. IU gave up once they were down like 18-20. So I mean, it was a spectacle. I loved every minute of it, and I was so happy to see Chucky step up and kind of show out and show who hopefully is going to be for the rest of the season.
Yeah, which was a one-of-a-kind two-way player. Mm-hmm. Truly one of a kind. The offensive things you specifically have been saying you wanted to see out of Chucky, more so after our first couple of performances. We saw it. He was there. He was assertive with the ball. He was getting into the paint. If he saw a matchup he liked, he attacked the rim. And if not, he was creating open shots for other players. And that's the Chucky that he came here to be offensively. Just an all-around, fully in control player who knows exactly where the ball needs to be on the floor and knows how to exploit his matchup when he has one that he likes. He's an underrated scorer, and I think from what people knew about Chucky going into this season is that he was an underrated scorer, and you knew he had the skills to do the things that we saw in the Bahamas and against Indiana and West Virginia and things of that nature, and that's exactly what he did. 89-61, like it was just a full on beatdown. We were up 8 to end the first half, and that was a bit of a. I felt like we could have been up a little bit more going into that half. I felt like there was, we had a couple spurts in the first half where it wasn't as cohesive as you wanted it to be. But the second half, the adjustments we made, Chucky continued to take the Rice kid out of the game. He ended up getting his first bucket late in the second half, I believe. And they weren't creating a whole lot from the wings. They'd get into the paint, we'd wall up. We defended amazingly. Jake, talk to me about the defensive performance against Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, I think interior matchup was, like we said, biggest concern. I think IU found some success with that late in the first half. Only down, I think, 7 going into halftime, maybe 9 at most. They were drawing a lot of fouls, but I mean, second half perimeter defense all starts with Chucky, but I mean, everyone just did not allow Indiana to penetrate. Their guards were completely ineffective. McKenzie Mbako wasn't effective. I mean, really, no one was that great for them. So, I mean, I was super impressed. God, I couldn't stop tweeting out horny memes. Every chance I got, I was posting one. I was.
You were tweeting hella. You were tweeting hella during the Indiana game, but with good reason. With good reason.
Had to get them off.
It was, especially once that we got into that flow in the second half, we just completely took them out of the game. They were out of it. Woodson was out of it. Every coach was sitting down. No coaches were really coaching. Once they knew they were beat, they were beaten bad. Won that second half by 20 plus points. It felt good when our first true outing against what we thought is going to be a competitive team later on in this year in Indiana and potential tournament team in Indiana. A definitely tournament caliber roster in Indiana.
Certainly.
We saw a great all-around performance. Chucky Hepburn did it all. 60 points, 10 rebounds, 7 steals. Pretty sure he was pretty active with some assists as well. Noah Waterman, 16 points, 3 rebounds. Getting that 3 ball to fall. The off-ball screams with James Scott. This isn't going to get talked about in that Indiana game. James Scott was screening perfectly off the ball in that Indiana game. He set up 2 or 3 specific shots just for Noah Waterman. That might be a specific set for the two of them when the two of them are in the game. And Chucky has the ball over on the other side. Whoever has the ball on the other side, but loved what I saw. Yeah, I was yelling pretty loud during that Indiana game for sure.
I was at work, so I couldn't yell, but God, I was freaking out. I had to close my office door at one point just so I didn't get HR called on me.
Glad you're still able to get to watch that though. And then, Jake, the very next day, coming off that performance against Indiana, we get West Virginia. An unexpected matchup considering a lot of people assumed Gonzaga would beat West Virginia in their first round matchup. Mm-hmm. Didn't happen. Gonzaga's not as good as people think. Gonzaga might be a little overrated this year. Plus, Gonzaga is usually really good to start the year off if they're good, and they're not. So, not at least defensively in their outing in the battle for Atlantis. But talk to me, West Virginia, Louisville wins 79-70. Outside of the Chucky Hepburn game, Chuck Atlantis. What were your takeaways from this game? I mean, I'm saying outside of Chucky. Chucky was the key, was the contributing factor in this performance for us. But having over 40% of our points.
Yeah, I was about to say, outside of the dude that scored 40% of our points, I think this game was maybe as impressive, if not more impressive than the IU game. I think we now kind of have questions about how good is IU. I know talent-wise, we know they're a tournament team, but how good are they as a team? I mean, West Virginia came in, played their style, played well. Louisville did not shoot well, shot 25% from 3, and we were still able to win this game. Javon Small was going off, pushing off, hitting every shot he could take. I mean, I was super impressed by this game.
Out so much.
Oh, my God. I noticed what he did is he would he'd get his elbow and he wouldn't fully extend his arm out, so the refs wouldn't call it. He'd just like keep it tucked, almost like a chicken wing, and he was getting away with it so often.
Super
But
savvy. Yeah, when you don't extend the forearm, you can get away with it a little bit more. So
yes, just
but it was
super
making me
impressed that
mad because
Louisville's able to win a game like this, honestly. Because you
yeah.
think going into this tournament, you tell me that it's going to be a super physical game and we're going to shoot 25% from three. I'm probably guessing that we're taking an L there, and we didn't. And we played well, and we didn't have a letdown coming off a huge IU game, which was great. So I thought it was a spectacular game.
I feel like the West Virginia game was like when the offense was flowing how we wanted it to. Excuse me, sorry. That was the epitome of what the Pat Kelsey offense looks like. You know, it's being spearheaded by your point guard who knows how to control things. You've got your wing scorers active, moving. You're attacking the offensive glass, and you're fighting on defense. I hate to say that, but that's what we were doing against West Virginia because you had to. This is a team that athletically built, not a lot of skill players on their team, but a lot of athletic guys who know how to play basketball and stayed close. One of those games where it stayed close. You know, majority of the game, you had to keep your composure throughout this kind of game because West Virginia would go, Javon Small, they would go on these couple runs where they would score, 4 unanswered, 7 unanswered kind of points. And you would feel like Louisville's, oh no, we're about to fall off. We're about to fall apart. We're about to fall apart. And Chucky would just he'd just do his thing. He was preventing that every time. And we'd get the lead. He would, every time we felt like we needed to extend the lead, he'd extend it for us. So definitely was impressed with our performance against West Virginia. We did not shoot well from three, and we out-rebounded them, and we were still able to get be in control of the game late in the game. That's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, I mean, it was Chuck Lannis. It was Chuck Lannis for that night. I mean, 32 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 6 steals. It was so impressive. Rain shot well. Kasean played really well. It was a great game. And like you said, it felt like West Virginia would get up 6, would get up 8, and then you're worried. You're like, God, are they about to blow it up to 15? Are we out of this game? No, we bring it back down to 3. And then just by the end of it, we got it tied. And then overtime, Chucky was just everything. And also the refs decided to start calling a lot of fouls, which was in our favor since Chucky was like 12 of 14 from the free throw line. So all in all, great game, huge win. I know West Virginia's not a huge name, but I think they're a tournament team. They look like a better team than IU at this point.
What do you think of the Chucky missed free throw to not seal it?
I know. I was like, once he went to the line, I was like, oh, he's got it. He's 80% career free throw shooter, if not better. He's shooting 90% in this game, and then he missed it. And I was like, oh my God.
Were you nervous?
Yes, but it all worked out.
I was too. But yes, it did. Controlling victory in overtime. Loved what I saw in overtime out of the guys. And then Jake, you make it to the championship game. Your third game in 3 days, coming off an overtime victory, and you've got Oklahoma next. Probably, in terms of guards and wings, the most athletic team you've seen so far. I think they're a little bit more athletic than West Virginia. And West Virginia, you had the advantage on the wing. I think the front court had the advantage with Indiana, potentially with athleticism and size. But Oklahoma is a team that more so built to have it all, and really good guard in what is his name, Jeremiah Fears, who's just a true freshman who can score at all 3 levels, super fast, super quick, super twitchy, and they had the other guard as well who we'll get into, we'll talk about. But this Oklahoma game, Louisville was not able to get the victory. Cards fall. What was the score? I'm losing the score here. 69-64.
Yep.
But this was a game where we were right there with them the entire game. Jake, how did you feel about this Louisville's performance against Oklahoma? Specifically, what were you feeling at halftime?
At halftime, I felt like we were in it. I mean, we did such a good job. Jeremiah Fears got in foul trouble, but he really never got it going. And he was their go-to guy, averaging 18 points coming into that game. I was disappointed with how we guarded Jalen Moore. I was worried about him. He's that 6'7" small forward, just freak athlete, superhuman strength, and he took advantage of Louisville not really having a guy that could match up and guard him when it came to his speed and his strength and his athleticism. Disappointed there, but I mean, overall, if we hit threes, we win that game. We shot, I think, 21% from three. Like, my God, if we just even shoot 30%, we probably win that game by 5. We out rebounded OU by 21. Definitely didn't expect that. I liked the look from Noah Waterman in the corner when we were down by 3. Chucky drove baseline, kicked it
Great
corner.
look.
I like that look. I'm cool with that.
Great
I know
look from
Noah wasn't
someone you
shooting
want
well,
shooting
but
it. Yep.
I
That's
know
still
I was
somebody on
watching.
this team you want shooting that shot. So
Yeah, for sure. The only other person I'd want there is Rain Smith, and it just but Noah can shoot over anyone. So I love the look. I was watching my family; they weren't happy. They're like, "Why is Noah shooting? He hadn't hit a 3 all game." And I'm like, "He's a good 3-point shooter. That's the play you want. That's a player you want shooting that 3. Noah loves corner threes. So I mean, hated that. We didn't shoot well from the free throw line, only 9 of 16, and obviously in close games like that, it sucks. And I really also don't understand when that white dude for OU, I can't remember his name, but when he touched the ball while Chucky was inbounding it, we're down by 3. Is that not a
yeah,
reviewable play? I feel
he's
like that's a reviewable play.
he's jumping up and he's pulling his hands down like he's literally trying to spike the ball and time it as Chucky's throwing it. And as Chucky throws it, it looks like his hands are on the ball before it leaves Chucky's hands. It looks like he got a clear touch before it touches Chucky's hands. I don't understand why that doesn't get reviewed more right there. Really super weird into the gameplay right there. You hate to see that, but I mean, what can you do?
Yeah, I don't understand. How do you not? Because that's certainly got to be a reviewable play, and I believe if you do that, that's a technical foul. So it should have been, if
Yeah,
called correctly, if reviewed, 2
free
free
throws
throws,
and the
and
ball
we get the
back.
ball back with 8-9 seconds left in the game, only down 1 at that point. So I hate that. I mean, there are the reasons why we lost. We had an open look in the corner. We didn't shoot super well. We did not guard all their players super well, Jalen Moore especially. So I mean, I'm not blaming it on that, but that is frustrating looking back. Like, how? Because that's something the referees can change, and they just
I want to
didn't even
ask you,
take a look
Jake.
at it.
I want to ask you, dribbling up the court as a defender, potentially try to put yourself in who the highest person up is. That's actually put yourself in the Louisville player's shoes. You potentially hear or see OU's coach telling them to foul, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, we call Pat Kelsey calls a timeout, but if you're Pat Kelsey, if you're the coaching team, you've got to be eyes on the other team's coaching staff, right? Right there, because you've got a timeout. You know they're going to try to foul. You've got to try to get your timeout in before they foul, because that's 2 free throws when you're down 3 and you don't have a chance now. Now you're just going to end up playing the fouling game again. But you're dribbling up the court. You don't see them going to foul with 9, with 11, 10, 9. You don't see them trying to foul, and then you call the timeout. Do you wish they maybe want to try to get more up the court and potentially try to see if we could get a playoff?
No, I think that's the right call there. I mean, because you see their coach very clearly yelling foul, scream foul, 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 foul. You hear that as Coach Pat Kelsey, and you think, well, let me get a setup here before, and we can go get an out of bounds play, which I trust Pat Kelsey in almost all the sets. He's ran great sets all year long. And I think in my mind, he sees it and he thinks, okay, well, I can run an out of bounds set where I go 1 pass, off ball screen, 1 pass shot before they can even foul. So I don't blame him at all. I mean, I would have loved to see it play out differently, maybe see if we can get a shot off there. But no, I don't hate it at all. Getting the guys organized, getting a set play, getting it to whoever you want to shoot that ball, and getting a quick shot off as opposed to just letting them foul you and leaving 6 seconds left and playing the free throw game.
That's fair. So I think if you're Chucky and you're hearing them say foul and you're not seeing their players react, I think you maybe want to go see what you can go do in 5-6 seconds. Just get up the court quick. You've got 11, 12 seconds when the ball's in Chucky's hands. I think at that point you've got to try to see what you can find in those first 4 to 5 seconds, because you've got the timeout. You can call it 4.5. If you give yourself 4 to 5 seconds to inbound, find 1 pass off of a screen, that's plenty. But you're right. At the same time, you're Pat Kelsey. You're hearing that you've got to call a timeout just to prevent yourself from not having a chance. So I get it. The basketball head in me would love to see that play out 2 or 3 more times. And you're right. That's a fucking violation. His hands slapped the ball before we inbounded it. That's a technical. That's 2 free throws in the ball back, or is it two in the ball back in college right there?
It should have been.
Yeah,
I believe it would have been two technical free throws and the ball back.
It's kind of screwing us right there when you're down 3. You hate to see that.
Yeah.
But props to OU for putting that kid in, the white boy, just to do that. He got subbed in just to do that.
He's got a volleyball career ahead of him. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, and he did it for sure.
I will say overall, I wanted to talk about like looking back on the 3 games. I compiled some stats over the 3 games. Obviously, Chucky stands out. Averaged 20, 5 assists, 5 steals a game. MVP of the tournament for us. Is there anyone else that stood out to you in a good or bad way for this Louisville team?
Terrence Edwards stood out for me, and it wasn't great. Granted, he is an active defender, and if he's not guarding someone too shifty, he's pretty much a good defender all the time. He tries to be active on the glass, but offensively, Jake, when he gets the ball, he makes me say, "What was that?" more times than I say, "Let's go." And I get that that's a stupid little fan way of analyzing it, and obviously I want to go into it, but he's not assertive enough with the ball. I said this earlier today. When he clearly knows the shot or set is for him, or it's at a transition moment where he knows he's about to make a move and take this ball in the rack, or he knows he's going to shoot it, he's a much more fluid player who looks comfortable. When he's in a position where he's not really sure if it's his shot in the set, or he gets put in a position where he's forced to shoot, or he kind of gets trapped after a dribble move, he isn't what we need him to be. He's not the same player as the guy who knows that that's his shot, knows he's supposed to try to take that man to the basket, knows that this is his area in the set. If it comes to him, he can shoot it. It's like half the time he's one player and half the time he's this other player. And it's not really half the time. It's majority of the time, I want to say.
Yeah.
When he gets the ball,
he looks unsure. You're right. Like he just like, and he seems like he's having a difficult time getting past players. And that's something that surprised me a lot because of all the transfer guys besides Chucky, I think I would have said Terrence Edwards will have no issue moving up to the Power 5 level. But he has. We were talking about it before we started, but like in the 4 games against Power 5 teams, Terrence Edwards is averaging 8.5 points, 2.8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, turning the ball over just as much as he's getting assists. He's shooting 33% from the field, and he's shooting 7% from 3. I think that's probably his biggest thing, just a lack of any jump shot whatsoever in these big games. And it's just been frustrating. You're right. He looks hesitant. He looks like he's struggling to get past his man. He's not shooting the ball well at all. It's been really surprising. And with a loss like Kasean Pryor, who at times was still turning the ball over and was taking some poor shots within the offense, was still a guy who could go and get you a shot, could go one-on-one and finish at the rim, take a big, or he wasn't really hitting threes, hit a 3 sometimes when he's open. So we're going to have to see more from Terrence. Just like we had to see more from Chucky and we saw it, we have to see more from Terrence. We have to see more confidence. We have to see him getting comfortable within this offense, which I'm guessing is part of the issue because I don't know what else it is because at James Madison, he was the dude. He had no issues with confidence, getting past people, hitting shots. You saw it in the Wisconsin game when he played in the tournament for James Madison and beat him. So it's he's definitely the one that stood out to me outside of Chucky in the most negative way possible.
Yeah, I mean, positive-wise, I think Javon Hadley just solidified my I'm comfortable when he's in the game and when he has the ball kind of a feeling. And when he's defending someone is who you might feel is a key player for the other team. You're comfortable with Javon on the court. You feel like he needs to be on the court. I still think there's something weird going on with his wrist motion on his shot, but he's hitting them. He hit a big one to keep us in the game against what was that, Oklahoma? So he not necessarily impressed me, but he made me feel good, I guess, is the way I should put that, about the way he played on both ends of the ball in the Bahamas, really. And Casey, go ahead.
No, I think that not that the Kasean Pryor injury is good news whatsoever, but I do think that Kasean being out and Javon having to be more of a small ball 4 than kind of that tweener 3 that he has been playing, I think that will be good for him. I mean, we saw it in the last game. I think he put up like 11 and 11 or some stat line similar to that against OU. Like once he knows his role, once he knows he needs to be that small ball 4, he can take guards, post them up. He needs to focus more on rebounding. I think that's a role that he's going to thrive in. He did back down way too much. He had 5 turnovers in that OU game and was just over backing at times.
He got the chair pulled out of him out like 3 or 4 times. They pulled the chair on him. One of them, I think it was a bad call. I think he didn't take 2 steps and he didn't have full possession on top of that. So it was a weird call for me. But yeah, I think that was exactly what I was leading into. You kind of saw it when Kasean went out. Like he kind of had like a bit of like, okay, someone needs to step up offensively here. I'm going to try to be that. Defensively, he's hasn't backed down to any challenge at all season. But excuse me, I think the lineup with Noah Waterman out there at the 5 and him out there at the small ball 4, and Noah spacing the floor and him having a little bit of room to operate down there. If he does get a matchup or when you get a 3 switched on to him that's too small, he'll be able to exploit these when he has some room out on the floor and we're spacing the floor. With James Scott, it'll be different, right? Javon will have to be out on the perimeter a little bit more when James Scott's on the floor because we do like to be 4 out when James is out there still because we're a 5 out kind of team. But I think that I don't know how to even phrase this and sound positive about it. And I don't want to sound too positive like it's a good thing at all. But I think for Javon Hadley's sake, this Kasean Pryor injury is just going to put him on the court more. It's going to get him asked to do more on both ends of the floor. And we should be able to see, a consistent Javon Hadley like what you saw last year at Colorado. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, where does this team – because I think the biggest thing now is where does this team go without Kasean? He's our second leading scorer. I believe he's leading us in rebounds, leading us in blocks. Is the second go-to guy on offense. I was honestly more impressed with his defense. Super active, great at jumping the lane, especially on ball screens. He just, instead of hedging or hard hedging or dropping, he's just flying through it, getting steals. He was blocking shots. He was rebounding well. Just where does this team go offensively? And do we take a step backwards on defense without him out there?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're even having to question this is to this extent, and it's a genuinely good question, is because we haven't seen enough from Terrence Edwards. And now that Koren Johnson, potentially I've heard some rumors that he's getting a second opinion on his injury right now. Usually when you hear something like that, that's typically because you don't really like what you're hearing from the first opinion. So there's a lot of uncertainty, it sounds like, with the Koren Johnson injury, which was someone who is a scoring mindseted player and a primary ball handler, right? And Terrence Edwards hasn't been that scorer. He hasn't been that he can be a prolific scorer when he needs to be. We haven't seen it. We've seen it for a handful of plays, but not consistently throughout any game this season. Other than the one, was it Bellarmine? I want to say he had a good game.
Yeah, that was his 20-point game. So
Terrence has to step up. Terrence has to be your guy. Terrence has to be your go-to guy now that Kasean has gone down. I think offensively, you don't want to ask Chucky to go be a 30. We don't need you to try to get 30. We shouldn't need Chucky to try to go get 30, even losing Kasean Pryor. Chucky, we want him to be in that. Now he was probably going to be in that 12, 13, 11, 14 kind of a range, and that would be a good night from him for us. But now we're going to need 15, 16, 17 points from Chucky to hang with some of these teams like we think like a Ole Miss is going to be, and like a Duke and a UK. The UK guard play is great. The UK scoring play from the starting 5 is really great. I mean, the UK bigs both have their moments where they both seem like they don't really belong on the team, but the UK guard and wing play has been elite in terms of scoring, and Louisville's going to have to pick it up. The Louisville, Terrence Edwards, he's going to have to pick it up. Chucky, you're going to have to do a little bit more as a scorer than you initially thought you might have to. And Noah Waterman, you're going to have to lock in with this jump shot and make sure you're feeling good and start hitting some shots. We got to start hitting some shots, Jake.
Yeah,
I do want to stop here 1 second, though, because we're about to go forward tomorrow, and we're going to jump into this Ole Miss game. And a lot of what we're about to talk about right this second in terms of what it looks like going forward for us, we're going to see tomorrow. But before we do that, Jake, I want to give you the chance. You know, we're both on Underdog. We're good partners with our boys over at Underdog. And Underdog is the best place to cash all of your basketball takes and bets this season. Which players are going to go off? Which ones are ice cold? Make your picks in a few taps and turns and get your sports opinions turned into real money. Jake, I think we're on Underdog today. Do you have some plays for us? Is there something you might like for tomorrow night with our friends over at Underdog?
I've got one. Unfortunately, they don't have the Louisville Ole Miss game on there yet, but they do have the Indiana Sam Houston game. Umar Ballo's points rebounds is only at 21.5. I mean, that man can get 20 rebounds by himself. So if I had one play on Underdog, it would be Umar Ballo over 21.5 points and rebounds against Sam Houston.
I like that. I like that play. I saw a Lakers play on there for my LeBron James and Lakers. I like LeBron James over 1.5 3-pointers on Underdog. But I do want to get into Underdog, a quick detail here. Underdog is the best place to play pick'em. So sign up and deposit now using promo code STARTING5 to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Not to mention, Underdog will be running specials, promos, and bonuses almost every single day, including profit boost, discounts, free picks, and much more. Higher or lower, you can make the call on Underdog. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alaska, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Void in California, sorry. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Mr. and Mrs. is for everyone, from a more traditional 90 proof to a cash string that's smoother. In 2013, Russ going to the hole, and boy, could we use that right now. Mr. and Mrs. Bourbon covers tastes, all different taste of preferences, 6 different bourbons that they're offering. Be among the first to try Mr. and Mrs. Bourbon, the official bourbon of the state of Louisville, and the Starting 502 podcast on shelves anywhere you find your liquor, and now online at MrandMrsBourbon.com.
Welcome back, guys. Roman Kelly and Jake Hook here for Starting 502 podcast. Jake, we've talked about the battle for Atlantis. We've talked about some of the injuries that some of these players have got. We've talked about what that can mean. We've got a matchup tomorrow against the top 25 opponent. Ole Miss is coming to town. It's coming to Louisville, coming to the Ump Center, coming to see our cards. How are we feeling? What are we thinking?
I don't know. I've watched a bit of this Ole Miss team, and they're solid. They're really, really solid. They're senior-led. I think 4 out of their 5 starters are seniors, and like 5 out of the 7 dudes that get big minutes are seniors. They're a well-coached team. 5 dudes average more than 11 points per game. 4 dudes are shooting over 35% from 3. They turn the ball over the least in the country. I mean, they shoot really well as a team from 3. I think they're like top 50 in the nation in 3-point shooting as a team. So, I mean, I think this will be a really tough test. They run motion offense. They're really physical on defense. They get into passing lanes. So I think this will be a really interesting test for Louisville, especially without Kasean Pryor, kind of seeing how do we play without him in a full game. Does somebody step up? Do we see Terrence Edwards take that step up like we want to? Does it come from Javon Hadley? Does it come from Noah Waterman? Does it come from more rain? Where does Louisville go as we look to get into the teeth of this really difficult schedule over the next, month and a half?
Yeah, I'm gonna be eager to watch and see because I don't have an answer for you, Jake. We just don't really have no way to know. Tomorrow night will be the first big test. It's weird to feel like we have another big test in what this season is after we just felt like we accomplished a lot in our first couple of tests. And now we've got another one, first one on our home floor again since we've been able to win one. And we feel like there's just something different, something new that we have to look out for and learn about this team now. It's tough because it feels like Louisville hasn't, like, that was the perfect Bahamas trip to go find this true flow in what we are as a team. And now you're taking away a big key contributor to that, and you have to go relearn what's best for your offense and what's best for your defense without him. It's tough. You were already starting to have to do that with a starter and Abubakar Traore, which was more so of a defensive one that you had to figure out. Offensively, he wasn't a shooter and was kind of turning the ball over a lot, so you weren't losing a whole lot offensively without having a Abubakar. But defensively, I think in the first couple of games without it, you were able to see it. Just some switches weren't the same and stuff, but players were able to pick it up defensively and things of that nature. But this team is going to be different tomorrow night than what we've seen. Maybe pretty significantly without Kasean. You're going to have more minutes out of a 5-man and James Scott who can't stretch the floor, more minutes out of a Noah Waterman who's going to be playing minutes at the 5, who can't really defend 5s as well as you would want. It's going to be interesting, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I will say big thing. Ole Miss great on the perimeter. They not incredible. They don't really. I mean, they drive to the basket. They have good guards. They have good wings that get to the basket. Don't really have a huge post presence. Malik Dia is like their only true big man, but he shoots a lot of threes. He shoots like 36% from 3. So I think that's in Louisville's favor. So we're not going to get killed on the interior. But they're a really, really good team. I mean, a lot of really familiar faces too. Sean Padula, former Virginia Tech guy, shooter, still shooting really well. Shoots like 60% of his shots from 3, shooting 42% from 3. They've got former Louisville, I think, well-beloved player, Dre Davis, on their team after a couple of seasons at Seton Hall. He's now there. He's basically the same player that he has been his whole career. Effort guy, good defender, good rebounder, attacks the basket well, likes to post up in mismatches. Still can't really shoot the ball all that well. Kind of struggles to shoot in general. Still does try. Only shooting like I think 20-something% from 3, 26%. And they've got Jamin Brakefield, who's a high recruit from Duke and has been at Ole Miss for the last couple years. I mean, they've got a lot of really good players. Like I said, I think this is going to be a great test to see how this Louisville team responds to losing probably their second best or second most important player in the team. One guy I think that we haven't mentioned that could step up, and maybe it's not this game, maybe it's 5-10 games later into the ACC, but it's Kenai Ruths. I think he's logically going to find those missing minutes. We'll see more from Noah Waterman. We'll see more from James Scott. But if there's one guy that's going to receive a bulk of the missing minutes, it's going to be Kenai Ruths. And we've seen flashes of greatness from him. I think we all know he's super athletic, really aggressive for a freshman, and we like what we've seen. But he's inconsistent, makes freshman mistakes. So I think, honestly, if there's anybody that I want to see step up, and maybe not even in this game, but just as the season goes on, I think it's Kenai.
Yeah. You want to see him get better every game, I think. Is how the best way I can put that. This is my favorite player on the team, everybody. I love Kenai Ruths already. I want him to be here for, if things go as well as possible, he should be getting drafted at the end of next year. I think you wouldn't be mad at that if you could get 2 years out of someone who's on that kind of trajectory. I think he is very much so on that kind of trajectory. But like you said, he has those moments out there where he makes his freshman mistakes. He has his moments where I feel like it's partially due to, you almost have to go through a couple progressions in certain moments in this Pat Kelsey offense. Like there's usually 2 different pass options as someone who's receiving the first pass within a set. So, Kenai will come and set a screen, receive the ball at the elbow or on the wing, and there's 2 guys running off the ball. Screens being set. He has to try to figure out, which one to go to, or he has to make the correct pass and time his pass as well. And little things like that he just, I think, partially come from not playing a lot of minutes, not being in the system throughout the game often. Or it's just he should only get better with time. But I think you're spot on with that. If he can continue to learn the system well and know where he's supposed to be and know where to find his spots and how, he could be one of the most important players on this team as a freshman.
Yeah, I'm curious because I think Kenai will step up and will play more minutes, but he's not a playmaker. We're going to have to find somebody else because as much as Chucky can do and as much as we've seen Chucky do, he's not going to be able to be everything, especially against a Ole Miss team that is so good on defense, forces so many turnovers a game. It can't be Chucky forcing everything or else he's going to play outside of himself, and then he's going to look bad. So going to have somebody step up.
For me, I challenge Rain Smith. I challenge Rain Smith to be more of a playmaker as a guard. I feel like there's a lot of moments, and I get we're trying to get Rain open without the ball, and a lot of the sets are set up to where when Rain's on the court, he is an option, even if he's not moving off the ball. We're trying to, create action on the opposite side of him, get defenders to, kind of squeeze in, and maybe we get him on a skip pass if it's not a set where he's coming off screens. But I also see moments where I feel like he'll dribble handoff and not run off the ball, and he won't really do much with the ball when he has it. And I feel like he's quick enough and he's got a pretty secure enough handle to where I want to see Rain probe the defense a little bit and see if he can get a little bit of a drive and kick action going on a little bit more so. Just because of how much attention you have to give to him as a shooter. He's getting players to bite on the pump fake, attack after that if you can, and see if you can create an open three for someone else potentially too, Rain. I just think that Rain has the attention that he gets from the defense. He should be able to also be a playmaker when we need him to be, or when you have those moments where he's out there without Chucky.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Rain did what you're asking in that West Virginia game. He had a couple and ones that they called on the floor, which both looked like and ones. Max took the basket. They were playing his shooting. They were playing him tight. And he did a great job of realizing, like, okay, I'm not going to force this over him. I'm just going to catch the ball and immediately attack because they're closing out so hard. So I think we saw it against West Virginia. Didn't see it as much really at all against Oklahoma. Also, Oklahoma was just holding the fuck out of him off every off-ball screen. If you watch, they just had two arms around him, holding on to him, not letting him get open. So this Ole Miss game is going to be physical. They're a physical defensive team. I'm thinking Javon Hadley might have some mismatches because, like I said, they only have that one true big man. Everyone else is kind of like Dre Davis, Jamin Brakefield, tweener threes that play the four when they probably shouldn't for them. So I think Javon could. But again, we go back to it. If this team is going to succeed for the rest of the season, Terrence Edwards has to get back to the 15-point per game scorer, shooting efficiently from three like he has for the last 4 years of his career. We have to see that. And if we don't, then this is probably going to be a disappointing rest of the season. I don't see anyone else making enough of a step up, enough of a contribution without Kasean.
No. And you see that he has the ability to be that player. You see the little spurts and the little moments where he creates a shot that's like, well, why didn't you do that the last 3 times you attacked the rim, right? And we just got to see it. We have to see it more consistently. You have to see it more assertively, and you have to see it what seems to be more confidently, Jake. You didn't think that was going to be the case from a guy with so much experience, being a scorer and someone having high usage like Terrence did last year, but he doesn't seem as confident as you want him to be. So I want him to pick that up a little bit. Hopefully he can get a good outing tomorrow night against Ole Miss. Is there any other things you want to conclude on going into tomorrow night?
No, I think you're right. And maybe similar to the way we kind of saw Javon step up and realize that, okay, this team now needs a true four now that Kasen's out. Maybe with Kasen being out, he was the number 2 guy on offense. Maybe Terrence is able to feel more comfortable, be more confident in his shot, know that he needs to get more looks, create more opportunities for this Louisville team. So I'm hoping, because we've seen the talent. We saw it all last year. We saw it the year prior when he was 6th man of the year for James Madison. So we know that it is there. I think it's just more about him getting comfortable in the system and getting comfortable in him being able to find ways to be productive, not forcing it.
Yeah, I agree.
I will say, surprisingly, have you seen what the spread is for the game?
Yes, shocked me. We're a 4-point favorite.
Yeah, it's moved down to 3.5 now, but I was kind of shocked. I don't know if they're not taking into consideration the Kasean Pryor injury. It's Vegas, so they should be taking into consideration everything. It is at home, so that is an advantage, and I think we'll have more fans. We'll probably see the most fans we've had since Tennessee with how well this team played in the Bahamas, so that's an advantage. But I was surprised to see Louisville as a 3.5, 4-point favorite right now over this Ole Miss team that's looked really good.
I thought we'd be like a 2.5-point underdog or like a 3.5-point underdog potentially, but I'm not complaining. It's interesting. Maybe they know something we don't. I thought this is going to be, closer to Ole Miss being the favorite, but maybe they're believing in this young center crowd that's coming out. and it's going to be a hostile environment for Ole Miss. That's what we need to happen.
You want to give a
Jake,
before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to get a score prediction. I think that I feel like I've been predicting lower scores than everybody, and I've been closer on most of them. I don't think this is going to be some crazy high-scoring game at all. I think this game is going to be right. I think Kim Palm has it as a 76-72 Louisville win. I think I'm at like 67-63 Louisville. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good that as much as I'm worried about Kasean Pryor and what that means for us, I also am feeling like Noah Waterman, Javon Hadley, and Kenai Roos, the three of them and the trios, Kenai's going to have minutes at the 5 now. Javon Hadley's going to have a lot of minutes at the 4, a lot. So I just like what that spacing means for Terrence and for Chucky and for Rain, and for pretty much everybody. And you want Jaden Scott to continue to be strong-handed, not get bullied off the ball, a hard rebounder, a lob threat, and just continue to look like he belongs, like he did in majority of the time in the Bahamas.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's definitely gonna be lower scoring. I think one thing we've seen is teams that kind of have a go-to guy, a guy that has a huge mismatch, like Javon. Not that Javon Small had a mismatch, but a guy that can just get a bucket. Those are the players you need against this Louisville team because we are so strong defensively. We force so many turnovers. We play so well as a unit on defense.
We play great team defense, yes.
And Jalen Murray's really good. Ole Miss guard, senior, been there for a while. He's little, 5'11", can create his own shot. But I think if you can contain Jalen Murray, all these other guys are just okay players that are just playing in a really good system. Sean Buell's great shooter, always going to have to get out on him. But, I mean, I think you're right, low-scoring game. I am hesitant to pick Louisville to win just because I don't know what we look like without Kasean. So I'm going to say Ole Miss 70, Louisville 65. But I think it's a close one. And again, we've said it every podcast, or at least I know I have. If this team could ever fucking shoot like we know they can, we can win this game by 10 or 15. At some point, I'm going to go insane. Because
I'm telling my friends we're shooting 30 for a reason. They're shooting that many for a reason. It's not like they are a bunch of guys who can't shoot. They're guys who aren't making them right now. So, we got like
5 or 6 dudes on the team that are career 35% 3-point shooters or better, and I think one of them is shooting above 35% right now.
It's terrible. But tomorrow is time to get back on track. It's time to learn, what this offense can be without Kasean Pryor. It's time for some guys to step up, and that's what we want to see tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Hey, last time I picked us to lose was against Indiana, and we won. So let's keep this trend going. If this happens again, I'll pick us to lose every game.
We want Jake to be wrong. We want Roman to be right in this instance. But, Jake, appreciate you doing this with me. It's been great as always. Press, get your ass back on here. No more excuses. I'm just kidding. We've all had reasons to miss or not be there the full time and things of that nature. Life hits, and it's that time of year where it seems like a different responsibility every week for what you've got to do. But Jake, this has been great. Listeners, this has been Starting 502 Podcast with Roman Kelly and Jay Cook. We'll be back to you reacting after this Ole Miss game and before the Duke game. It's been great. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.
Go Cards.